probably wait for another like 30 seconds for people to trickle in. Alrighty, let's do this. You gonna cut the audio? Cut music? Alright guys, welcome to day 4 at this point. Time is flying, and I thought it might be valuable to do a little bit of like recap, make sure everyone's at the same point, because some things went a little slow yesterday and took more time than we thought they would. Some things definitely went too fast, namely server stuff. So I think it would be helpful if we could recap exactly the server stuff and we'll do a brief kind of catch-up of what we've done so far in the class. One other thing, guys, is if everyone, I'm going to do a little experiment in class today. If everyone could please connect to the MIT Wi-Fi network. It's something that's reliant on everyone being on the same Wi-Fi network, or same Wi-Fi network as me, rather. So connect to MIT, and that's great. So that's just the introduction. Let's just briefly talk about all the workshops we did. So cute smiley face. What did we do well in workshop 0? Well, workshop 0, basically, if you remember, we were starting from scratch, and we had an empty directory. And we basically worked with Rupine to create a profile. We had a feed where we could post stories, and we like live update our own page and show these stories. So, and on top of that, it was really pretty. So that was a really good part about workshop 0. Now, what was not as great? So workshop 0 definitely had some problems with it. You guys probably ran into one of them pretty quickly. If you remember, our profile page had a kind of last post category under it. And as you saw when you made posts on your feed, that didn't update. So technically, that was broken. And if you try thinking about what steps you would take in order to fix that problem, it kind of brings you to the thought of needing a database, because somewhere you have to remember what somebody's last post was, even if they left the page, even if they log in from somewhere else. So basically, it's important to have a database just for that reason alone, that we can't even render your last post without one, and we'll be getting to that later today. What else was not so good about workshop 1? Oh yeah, if you refresh the page, you lost everything. That was pretty great. So that's another thing that database would be great for, that it remembers state in some sense. So that's workshop 0. What tools did we use? HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all client-side stuff. And Bootstrap. Now, we can go on to yesterday, which was Danny's lecture, which was workshop 1. Workshop 1, we kind of learned about what an API request is. And I know that word sounds fancy, but basically it's the way in which you interact with a server. So that's how you ask a server for information and how you send information to a server if you want to change something. So basically, we use the GET request in workshop 1 to grab all the stories that everyone has posted from Danny's computer, and then we could render it on our own pages, which was really cool because that allowed us to no longer have us only see our own posts and able to post to ourselves. It allowed us to see other people's posts. The problem with this though, if you guys probably tried it out, if you type something in your status bar and you clicked post, nothing happened. So clearly something was broken there, and that brings us to what was not so good, that again, we did not have a database backing the server that Danny was running, or you guys couldn't interact really with the database that Danny was running on a server. So basically, when you you couldn't even post your, like, the still functionality was not totally there yet. So that has to be improved, and it will be improved today. And what tools did we use? So you used all the same tools that you used on Workshop 0 with Repine. You used HTML, CSS, JavaScript to render all the stories. And what tools did we learn? We learned how to make a GET request. And that was really the only tool that you needed to learn, like, concretely, in order to do Danny's workshop. So that was Workshop 1. Now for Workshop 2. So Workshop 2 was a bit of a rush, and I recognize that. So I think it will be valuable today to do a bit of review of Workshop 2. So basically, what it comes down to is servers are complicated. There's a lot of work that goes into configuring a server correctly, and we were trying to rush through those configurations yesterday, and that's hard. So I'm going to give another kind of angle on how you can view how a server works and what it's actually doing, and maybe that will make more sense to you. And of course, if you guys have any questions, please raise your hands. Like, this is the time to do it. We're all trying to get to the same point here at the recap before we move on to like databases, and tomorrow we'll do authentication. So if you guys are lost now, you'll be lost even further later on. So don't be shy. I think if you guys have a question, there's probably like 12 other people in this room that have a question too. Just don't want to ask it. So basically, I liked Rupine's thing about like your take on this material. I think my take on basically web development, whether that be from CSS, whether that be in HTML, and even more so when it comes to servers, like this stuff is going to be, you're going to get thrown a lot of things that you don't know what it is. Like, you're going to be importing some library and using these functions to set up your server, which I'll get into soon. And these functions look really complicated, you don't know what they're doing, and the best way to learn what something does is to play with it. And examples of play with it are like, remove it from the project, and then run your server. Your server might crash horribly, okay? You need that line to make your server run. Let's just say you don't know what some CSS property does. Okay, just put it in there and play with the properties and see how it changes your web page. Sometimes researching this stuff on the internet, which is a really great resource, can actually be negatively helpful because they'll define something in terms of something else that you don't know. And it's just a rabbit hole to like chase from one start point. You end up like going through like 15 W3 schools pages and you never figure out what you originally wanted to, when you really could have just like made the property like 5,000 pixels wide, and then you would have seen your website blow up, and then it would have been, you would understand what it did. Maybe 5,000 is too much, but like doubled it. So I'm going to kind of learn about servers together with you guys in Workshop 2. Now, if everyone could kind of do this actually in a bit, I'll tell you when to do it, but I'm going to sit down for a little while, and I'm going to give you an example of something a server can do that you guys weren't able to kind of do on your own before Workshop 2. So give me 1 second. So right now, I can give you guys an example of where I'm at. So basically, I've gone to Monday's workshop yesterday, and went to my command prompt right over here, and I typed git reset -- hard to make sure any changes I had were erased, and then I went to step 1. So if you guys want to follow along, all you have to do is go to the Catbook 2 workshop and make sure you're at the step 1 branch. So that is where I'm at currently. And as you can see, the only file we really have that's doing things is 10 lines long. So that seems like it's really short and it should be really simple. And the thing is it's importing a library that's probably thousands of lines long, so actually understanding what everything does is very difficult, but we can try attempting some kind of, we can chip away at it. So one thing that a server can do, which is one thing that you guys might not understand, is actually what a server is. And basically, what a server is it's a computer that's running a program, In our case, that program is written in JavaScript that basically allows it to interact with other things. And the way you do this interaction is with GET requests and POST requests, which is what we talked about in workshop 1. So these are the lines of code that will run, and that will be our server. Basically, it's just going to run and stay online, continuously running, waiting for people to connect to it. And the way you connect to it again is through making a GET request or a POST request. So let me just spin up this server. So the way that you start a server is you have to go to the file which kind of starts everything. In our case, we only have one file, so it's not too hard to figure out what starts everything. And you have to run it with Node, which is just a runtime engine. So you type node, and then app.js. And as you can see, something at least is happening, because it says the server is running on port, and it gives a 3000 over there, which is defined right over here. So that looks good. But what does this mean? How do you connect to a server? All we know is that right now, somewhere on my machine, there's something that's running continuously, but I don't know how I want to connect to it. So basically, everything on the internet, and this is maybe a little bit broad, I don't want to say everything is a dangerous word, but the way you connect to things on the internet is through something called an IP address. And an IP address is just a way that, think of it like a mailing address at your home. If you want to send something to your home, you have to first you need to grab an envelope and you need to write the mailing address to which you're sending it to. Same thing for an IP address. I don't know exactly the mechanisms through which you actually get to that point, but an IP address is basically some long number that's a way for things to connect to you. So if something is running on my computer, it's being hosted at my IP address. And if you want to know what your IP address is, pretty easy. You go to here, I search what is my IP address. And all of you guys should be able to do this. And right here, Google is really great. It will basically tell you immediately what your own IP address is. So, in case you want to remember that, I wrote it on the board earlier. So as you can see, my IP address is right here on the board, and I've made a little modification to it, namely at the very end. So the internet is complicated. There's not only are there IP addresses for things to connect to, but there's also port numbers for traffic to go through. Think about different lanes on a highway or something like that. Basically, on the World Wide Web, if something is public, everything goes through a specific port called 80. But in our case, our thing is not kind of super official yet, so we have it hosted on port 3000. And if something is not on port 80, you need to just add this kind of :3000 to specify a specific port. Because your computer will by default try to connect to port 3000, or port 80. So I have my IP address. I also at the same time have my server running. And let's try connecting to my IP address. So again, I run it and it says it can't connect. The reason being is that I didn't specify a port number. So if you do port 3000, boom, we actually did something, which is really cool. And hopefully, if you guys also go to this URL, let me just change it actually, real quick, before you guys connect. If I go to, by the way, this server was running. The way I killed the server and stopped it from running was by typing Control and C at the same time. It's normally, in kind of Unix processes, the most standard way to kill something from running is by pressing Control C at the same time. So let's make it say, instead of hello world, be like, hello, you are connected to Aaron's computer. Oh, apostrophes are bad. Aaron's computer. Alright, nice. And let's start up our server again. So our server is running. This change looks like it's been saved. Let's see if it's changed on our server. Nice. So this says, hello, you're connected to Aaron's computer. And if you guys are all on the MIT network, and you go to this URL, who here can see this on their computer? So I'll wait until we get a few more hands, but basically, that is something that's super cool about servers. Up to this point, you guys were doing everything on your own computer. But you can imagine if you want to somehow make this more legit and actually have something that works, you need some centralized machine that everything is going to talk to. Say that, I don't know, somebody over there posts a story, and then somebody over there posts a story. We need to make sure they're both communicating with each other, and the easiest way to do that is by having them both communicate to one centralized server, and then that server will report its changes back to all of them. So that's kind of the general design, that the way kind of the web works is everyone is on every client is on their own computer somewhere. If they make changes somewhere or they want to get information, they all ask it from one centralized server, which again is just something that's running code continuously, and it's just a program that is running continuously, allowing it to connect to other computers. So I also want to. So that is great. So, let's move on.
I have one question.
Yep.
Can you go to your Apple.js?
Sure. That's good. I should have asked for questions.
And the create server is running when you run node.
Yep.
But we didn't see data streams. We saw data stream when we connected some clients.
Yep.
How does it happen? Because again, the client runs Apple.js.
So basically, you run app.js, and the way that you see that it's running is that it goes through all the lines of this code, runs it, and you see at the bottom that it's gone through this console.log, which also, if you guys remember terms, is a callback function, which it tells it to listen at this port number, and after it's succeeded to listen, it's going to run this callback function, which basically just says that it's successfully listening at this port. So that means your server is now listening at some IP address and some port number, waiting for traffic. Now you have to specify what it does when you make a GET request to. So one thing I did not explain, that's a good point. Anytime you go to a website, like for example Google.com, or you go to this guy, your server needs to make a GET request at the very beginning, because it doesn't have any information. You don't have any HTML. You don't have any JavaScript. You don't have, or doesn't, like basically you don't have files needed to even render your homepage. So your server makes a GET request right after connecting to any website just to get some initial files. And the GET request that it makes it to is basically your exact URL with a slash at the end, which is kind of indicating a root directory. So what this line over here does is it specifies what to do if somebody makes a GET request to the slash over there. And it tells it to, okay, send it this little string over there. And that's what you guys are seeing on your screen. Does that make any more sense?
Yeah, I realize that the top one is raised up and the other one.
Yeah, okay, my bad. Okay, so that's great. Does anyone else have any more questions? Is everyone all good? Can you give me a thumbs up if you guys are good? Alright, awesome. Getting a lot of thumbs up. So, let us move on. So, the best thing to do right now is let's go to Express. So, if everybody could right now on their computer, the server is running, let's kill the server. The way that you kill the server, remember, is pressing Control and C at the same time. Or you can hold Control first and then press C. It's alright. The server is over. So now, what I want you guys to do is type git reset --hard. It's going to change any changes that you guys made back to what it should be. And let's go to, I think it's called step 2. Great, so I've now gone to step 2, and as you can see, the files have changed a little bit. In fact, app.js, which we had before, was put in a source directory. So what Monday was doing here, actually, was kind of beginning to compartmentalize our server. Basically, we're going to have a whole bunch of files that we want to make sure are core to the server. And we're going to have a whole bunch of files we want to make sure are core to clients. And that's how we're going to split the two up. So let's focus still on the server right now. So this is app.js right now, and this is app.js of step 2. So as you can see, there's something different here. And what's different is that we're using a really powerful tool that's going to be essential for us to actually build our server into something legit. And what that legit thing is this line over here. I'm introducing you guys to a framework called Express. Basically, it's a super complicated framework that lets you run a server and break it down into different components so you can configure different things. Express is really complicated, so understanding exactly what it does is not necessary. I think I spent, when I first took this class with you guys, about 5 hours after we were given our first fully set up app.js, and I got nowhere, because Express, I basically had to take it, is doing a lot of magical things that is setting up our server for us. So my words of advice for you guys is, as I get to the end product over here, don't be too stressed out if you see things you don't know. You are not expected to know everything to know how to use it for servers. And that's kind of a core piece of advice. Basically, you're using a lot of really complicated libraries, and understanding what this create server function exactly does that we had earlier, or what exactly what the code in server.listen does, is not really essential to you guys being able to build a website. You just need to be able to use the tools that you're being given right here. So, alright, let's see what this code is doing. And the best way to do that is let's type node, which starts a server, and we need to tell it the file that we want to start, which is this app.js. If you guys see, app.js is now in a source folder, so we have to change a little bit. Okay, let's run it. And we get an error. You guys will get this error all the time, and this is a really important error to see, and it's very descriptive. And the way that you know what's wrong is actually this amount of lines over here, screw them. You don't care about them. They don't tell you what the error is. But this error is really good. What it looks for is, as I remember you guys, we had to import Express. And the way you import in JavaScript is this require over here. Actually, I think that's a backend JavaScript thing uniquely, but that's fine. And it says it can't find the module Express. So basically, it's looking somewhere here for you to have this Express module downloaded so it can use it. And the way that you do it, and if you guys are working in your teams, somebody's going to run into this bug all the time. The way you fix it is you type npm install. And it's going to look at all the dependencies, they're called, that you need, and download them for you. Great. It installed a crap ton of stuff. Cool. That's good. Now.
Do you want to open up package.json?
Okay, yeah, sure. And if you guys want to know what files that this is actually downloading and how it knows that you need Express, it's specified in another file right here. And as you can see, it says dependencies are Express. And it then downloads Express. This is also a key note to make, but it's kind of minor. If you guys install a module and don't update your package.json to say that you're using that module, even if you npm install, it's not going to work for somebody. And the error that they're going to get is just this error. And the way that they fix it is they're just going to have to manually do. What happened? Sorry guys, I didn't mean to fly around in my command window. So this is us installing npm express. You would have to do npm install express, and that would manually install express. If you guys want a trick to make it so it updates your package.json automatically, you type -- save, and it will automatically update your package.json after it does it. So great, we now have a way to, we now have a tool called Express. Let's see what it does on our server. So node src/app.js. Cool. Doesn't look like it's doing too much that's different. It's basically just running what's here. So one thing that you guys can see that's a little bit different is you have this app thing that's Express. By the way, does anyone have any questions? Is everyone all good? Yeah. Okay, that means that you, I'm going to discuss that error actually later. That's a common error that you guys will run into. Basically what it means is your computer is already listening to something on port 3000. So when Express tells it to listen on port 3000, it doesn't work. If you want a temporary fix to make it work, just change the port number over here. So like make it 3001. And then when you connect to your server, you'll do like your IP address, :3001. And that's a temporary way to fix it. What I would recommend doing is Googling that error, and it's going to give you a list of steps on how to kill the process that's on 3000 currently. For Windows computers, actually, I'll make this note now. Can anyone raise their hand if they're on Windows? Alright, good amount of you. Can you raise your hand if you're on Windows 10? Alright, everyone. NodeMon, which is a tool that I'm going to teach you guys about in a sec, is absolutely and horribly broken on Git Bash. If you try running something on NodeMon on Git Bash, it will literally freeze the terminal and crash. And it's going to crash in the worst way possible because it's not going to kill your server. So it's going to stay running on port 3000, but you're going to have no good way of killing it anymore. And you're going to get the same error that you had over there. So if you're I'm going to teach you how to use a tool in a sec called NodeMon. If you guys are on Windows, hold up for a second, and I will clarify for you what to do in a sec. So let's just connect to let's see what this server does when we connect to it. So it should be the exact same thing, IP address, :port, and it says hello world. So we can see something is happening and something is different. One thing that I want you guys to know is it's going to get tedious to type your freaking whole IP address every time. So your computer has a little trick built into it. There's something called a domain name. You guys don't have to worry about what that is if it sounds confusing, but a domain name is just like google.com is a domain name. And basically, what your computer does when it sees google.com is it looks up in some table somewhere, and that table points you to some IP address to talk to Google servers. So your computer has a built-in domain name to talk to itself. That domain name is called localhost. So instead of typing this whole IP address, you just can type localhost :3000. And that will connect to your own computer. Now, one thing this will prevent you from doing is connecting to somebody else's computer, because localhost always connects to yourself. So if you guys wanted to connect to me, for example, and you type the localhost :3000, you just connect to yourself, and it would never connect to me. So that's a tool that you guys should use all the time. It's way easier just to type localhost :3000 than freaking copy and paste your IP address. So great, we're at this point. So we learned about localhost 3000, and we saw what our server is doing. Now, you guys might have a question. What exactly are these lines doing? Because this is basically what's different in our server, right? We got rid of like the HTTP.create server, and replaced it with these lines over here. And this is part of the configurations of how Express builds a server. And I know that sounds complicated, but really all it's doing is kind of written down in the code itself. It's telling your application, your app, what to do when it receives a GET request. And if you want to know what to do, where it's receiving this GET request, it's receiving it at slash. And remember, guys, I talked about, where is that, my marker? I talked about slash right here. Slash is at the very end of your URL, and that's how you define GET requests, because it's always at the end of your kind of your starting endpoint. And in order to fully understand what this does, I recommend playing with it, because that's what I always did. So if you copy this and paste it like this, let's try making this like text over here. And make it say, hello, test. Are you guys all with me? Okay, a lot of nodding heads, that's great. So, now we've defined a route, it's called a route, at the slash test. So let's try it out. Let's go over here, and go slash test. It gives us an error. So this is also a very common error that you guys will run into. What's your question?
I'm kind of blind. Could you make the like zoom?
This test bigger?
I feel like
Everything bigger. My bad. Let's see how you do this nicely on Visual Studio Code.
Can you get rid of the sidebar or something?
Yeah, I don't think you can get rid of.
Can you make it thinner?
This sidebar you can't get rid of. I know it's Visual Studio.
Like, can you make it thinner?
Put it on the left side of the screen. Like,
oh, like here?
yeah.
amazing.
I can also just make this bigger. I don't really care what's on the website for now. Alright, is this better? Alright, so this is what we have right now on our app.js. Remember we made some changes and we restarted our server. Key thing, we never restarted our server. Our server has always just been running in the background. Now let's try going to our website. And remember, we got an error. And the error is, cannot do a GET request at /test. Now remember what I told you earlier? Whenever your website navigates to a URL, it does a GET request at it to receive some information. But we're confused because we just set up this URL right here for the GET test. The problem is your computer, this program was already running in the background. And even though you made changes to it, it didn't update those changes in the program that was running in the background. So the way that you make it understand that is you have to